People of Reddit, what is your stranger met story that you will never forget? When I was in elementary school I fell through ice. A man who was walking his dog saw me fall and rushed to the shore. I frantically swam back to the shore. I was only about 5 meters into the pond, so it wasn't a long way, but it took some with soaked winter clothes. When I reached the shore, the man pulled me up by my jacket. It would have been difficult to get up, as there was a steep incline. I didn't thank him, because I was in shock, but I bet he knows I was grateful, and 20 years later I still hope I would have thanked him. I was doing tech support and my customer was so happy with my service she offered to marry me to her daughter. I politely declined. Do you also accept daughters for payment? I was waiting for my appointment with an optometrist when an old Haitian man walked in with a grocery bags. The receptionist knew him, so he walked up to me and proceeded to ask me riddles. When I finally got the answer to one he reached into his bag and gave me a Snickers then left. To this day I'm really curious as to what would motivate a man to become a wholesome riddler. The gentleman in a business suit handing me his umbrella in the middle of a downpour. We just were passing each other on the sidewalk, our eyes met, and he just handed over the umbrella with a "here ya go." Never saw him ago. The foreign exchange student and his parents who walked past my park bench on campus and dropped his passport. I chased after them to return it, and his mom started screaming at me in broken English like, "Why you have his papers? Why you steal his papers?" While the kid and his father looked like they were going to die from embarrassment. This happened to me in the airport when I was 8. The man dropped his wallet and I gave it to him. His wife was just like, "Count the money in it, she looks like a thief." He didn't even have any money in it, and she accused me of stealing it. Some people, I was on a tram, and I didn't have a ticket and the ticket inspectors came on. I got asked to have my ticket seen, and I said I couldn't find it on me, and he said he'll come back, so I can look for it. There was a stranger sat on the seat behind me who had a ticket. He gave it to me, and he got off at the next stop. Guy gave me his ticket, so I wouldn't be issued a fine. I'm a ticket inspector and believe me, we know people are doing this. And if I turn around, I do it, so you can get the stranger's ticket. We are also humans. An Irish guy, not in Ireland, who spoke with such a strong accent that I couldn't make out a single word. To this day I question whether it was just a prank. I was at a pool bar at a resort in Jamaica. A British lady next to me asked me the most random question, which turned into a nearly 3-hour conversation. The question, what is a redneck? It was a lot more difficult to explain than I thought it would be. I didn't realize that was an unknown concept to a lot of Brits. Reminds me of an old joke for some reason. What's the difference between a cowboy and a redneck? Acreage. I was driving down south with my girlfriend. We have a blowout, so I put on the donut. The donut blows out while we are exiting the very next exit. So there we are, maybe 19 and at least 100 miles from anyone we know at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking on what to do next and probably looked like there was something wrong. So this older man offered to help. He drives me 20 or so minutes to a junkyard to get a cheap tire. Then he puts the tires on the rim with no more than a pry bar and some soapy water. Had a compressor on his truck, so he aired it up and I put it on. And we went on our way. AWW, we need more people like that guy in the world. It starts with you. Play your part and I'll play mine. We can make this world bright enough to shine. When I was younger, I went grocery shopping with my dad. As we were walking, an old man stopped us and handed both me and my sister a shiny $1 coin. He told us that he wanted us to have them and to have a Merry Christmas. I never saw him again, but I think of that kind old man from time to time. When my wife and I first started dating, we were walking into a Trader Joe's holding hands. This elderly woman looks at us and says rather loudly, "Cute couple alert." My wife and I still laugh about it. It's been 12 years at least. I was fiddling with my camera on a train platform in Melbourne, Australia, trying to take an artsy shot of the trains or something. I noticed through my viewfinder a guy about my age, early 20s or so at the time, full on flipping me off on the train on the opposite platform. I lowered my camera, laughing, and flipped him off back. He laughed. The train started to pull away, and I waved, and he waved back. Australia. The lady who told me I looked great in blue, and that it was clearly my color. To this day, if I'm deciding between shirts to buy or wear, I'll go with blue. That compliment was about 15 years ago at least. I was drunk on my front porch one night. Me and a couple of friends were shooting the crap. I lived in a rough neighborhood at the time. Lot of homeless people, but most of them were decent people just down on their luck. Anyway, I see a homeless guy walking by my house and I holler out to him, "Yo man, you want a beer?" And he's like, "Man, hell yeah, thank you." So he comes up into the yard. I give him a beer and an extra one for the road. He starts going on about how he misses his son and how he never gets to see him anymore. We all sit and listen to him. He starts crying and says he bought his kid a bag of brand new Hanes socks and his mom wouldn't let him have them. Now I don't know what he did to deserve such treatment. Maybe he's a total son of a bitch and deserves to be where he is. Maybe not. I have no idea. But what I do know is, whatever his past, he was having a very human moment at the time, and he was super thankful, not just for the beer, but that me and my friends were listening and talking with him. Just letting him vent. Then he tries to give me the pack of socks he bought for his kid, which I vehemently refused. I was like, "Man, you keep them. Your feet might get cold out there." But he wasn't hearing it. I mean, he refused to keep them. He flat out insisted that I take them. Eventually it became obvious he wasn't gonna take no for an answer and he wore me down, and I accepted them. I guess he didn't need the reminder. He moved on and the party vibe was completely gone. We all just went inside and crashed. About a year ago I fell off the wagon and was back to drinking heavily every night. In about July, some random dude from the apartment complex said he was homeless but crashing on his buddy's couch for the weekend, was walking by. I offered him some beer and smokes to keep me company since it was late night outside and I was spooked. He told me about his current life issues and how alone and unsupported he felt. We talked for hours. In November I happen upon him again, but he's dressed much nicer and has a bounce in his step. He explains that talking to me that night really helped him get his ass into gear. He gave my drunk ass that look, said, "If I can do it, you can. You're never alone." I'm nearly 2 months sober again with zero interest in picking up a bottle. I've officially started therapy and have clear but manageable goals laid out to help me move forward. If he can do it, I can. Edit. Thank you all for the awards. The show of love and support has me in tears. Thank you all for just being you. Never forget that you're not alone. Don't forget to take the time to care for yourself. Let yourself cry. Celebrate the little wins. There's always a silver lining, no matter how small, so notice it. If Nick can do it, we can too. When I was super overweight, I was just starting to work out somewhat regularly. Being morbidly obese at the gym is terrible. I have never felt more eyes on me before in my life. I was on a treadmill, grinding out some inclined walk like jogging, and a super fit girl got on the machine next to me. This was all pre-COVID. She did a short warm up, and before she got off the treadmill she turned to me and gave me a high five and told me to keep it up. It was so encouraging to have that support when I was used to getting stared at by everyone else in the gym. Her small kind gesture went a long way. There are a few. The biggest one was when I was homeless and asked a lady for the time. She told me and asked if I wanted to share her sandwich and the paper. She was the first person to treat me like a person, like I was worth something in years. I never got her name, but I will remember her fondly for the rest of my life. I know that she'll never ever know what a difference she made in my life. Just that one simple thing she did, and the humanity she showed me changed my life. I got sober just a few days later and completely turned my life around. One person, one smile, one kindness that you may never think of again in your life can change someone else's life beyond measure. My lost wallet was returned in the mail. The anonymous stranger sent it back at their own expense. $9.75 postage, with all the money, credit cards, driver's license, and other items intact. Nothing was missing. A note enclosed read, "Please do something kind for a stranger whenever you have the opportunity." I volunteer at a suicide hotline. Some guy, Bob, called in and we started talking about his home situation. Nothing absolutely horrendous. But he felt trapped and stressed and felt like he didn't have options. When people use language like that, our training says we should ask if they are thinking of suicide. Many volunteers have trouble with this. But if you mention suicide to someone who is not suicidal, it doesn't make them more suicidal. They just correct you and say no. I feel more like this. So I asked Bob, you're using a lot of language that people use when they are thinking of suicide. Are you thinking of suicide? There was a pause. And then a huge wail. I could hear so much pain in his voice. I listened to him cry for at least 5 minutes. I've talked to people who had suicidal ideation before. It would be better if I were dead kind of thinking, but with no plan. Bob said yes, he was considering suicide and we talked it out a bit more. After the pause and wail, that was the most concerned I've ever been for a human being outside my family. This wasn't just talking. I felt like he had already made up his mind about it, which was so scary. I only know what he told me. I know he was in his car parked somewhere. I know we got a few short laughs out of each other and we made some plans for him. Plans are important because it gives you a sense that if he has something to do, to plan for, he can't commit suicide. Anyway, he truly is a stranger. I don't know his real name or what he looks like. I just know his story, and I know that he was in immense pain that day. He had a particular kind of accent, and whenever I meet someone with that same accent, I think of him and hope he's okay. In college, I was dating a girl. I really loved her, but I realized that we were incompatible and we had to break up. So I downed a handle of vodka by myself in my dorm. I was drunk as duck, but still feeling crapty, so I decided to head to the bars and drink some more. I actually don't remember if I made it there or not, but I remember getting off the bus from having come from the bars and was too wasted to continue the relatively short walk to my dorm. I decided to just lay down where I was at, which was quite literally the gutter next to the railing. Luckily it was an empty gutter, but a gutter nonetheless. This complete bro dude comes by and sees me laying in the gutter and helps me up. He helps me walk back to my dorm, and on the struggle there he asks me what's wrong. I explained the situation. I don't remember much of anything from the conversation, but I do remember him saying something to the effect of, bro, your problems aren't gonna be solved at the bottom of a bottle. When I was a broke ass an 18-year-old trying to make ends meet, I had a side hustle providing its support for households, like a Geek Squad sort of thing. In practice, I would mostly set up computers for elderly people and the tech illiterate and teach them how to use them. Or get them out of technical binds, usually with printers, by googling on their behalf. This elderly Korean gentleman hired me to set up his new computer for him. I spent an hour setting it up and teaching him how to use it, and 2 more hours eating a wonderful lunch with the man and his wife. He wouldn't accept my invoice for just the first hour. Instead, he paid me 3x my hourly rate for all 3 hours and asked me to come back to train him the next week. Over the course of about a month I came back 4 times, worked with him, had a lovely meal, and he would tell me about his family and his kids. He was so proud of his daughter, who was about to finish her residency and become a pediatrician. By the end of the month he was pretty comfortable on the PC, and I thanked him profusely for how kind he was and how ridiculously he'd overpaid me. He told me I reminded him of his son, who was estranged for some reason I didn't press, and that he hoped somewhere out there somebody was being kind to his son and sharing a home-cooked meal with him. I don't know why, but more than 10 years later I can't think of that guy without tearing up. I hope everything turned out well for him. Took a train to New York City by myself for the first time. I was 18. Second time to New York City. First time ever on a train. I told the kiosk lady that I'd never been on a train before and asked if she might give me a quick rundown of what to do. Another train station employee was nearby and was so interested and amused that I was taking a train for the first time and was alone. He walked me through what to do, down to the smallest detail. No judgment, no meanness. He was just a guy with a silly disposition, delighting in a young person's naivety, breaking up the doldrums of his week. I aspire to be that way when people ask me for help. Thanks, Frank P. You were a peach. I went on an absolutely wild ride for my 21st birthday. I was totally blasted by the end of the night with barely an understanding of what my name was, much less how old I was. Anyways, on our way home, me and my big group of friends rented a limo for the night. No drunk driving here. I had to take a piss, but it was late and nowhere was open. So the driver stopped in a mall parking lot and I just relieved myself in by a light post. It wasn't until the next morning that I realized I couldn't find my phone. I had no idea what happened to it, but my girlfriend got a call later that day from my number. Turns out one of the street cleaner / maintenance guys for the mall had found my phone, and it was his daughter calling to say they had found it, as her father didn't speak English. I explained the situation and offered to come pick it up, but she said it was fine and they would mail it. A few days later I received my phone in the mail with a happy birthday card. They could have just kept the phone and sold it, or he could have just turned it in somewhere like a homeless shelter or the mall's lost and found at the security office, but he didn't. He and his daughter took the time out of their day to go to the store, get a birthday card, pack it and my phone in an envelope, run out to the post office, and mail it to me. It's an act of kindness I'll never forget, especially considering I had just pissed all over the street he had to clean. My dad is a truck driver. At the time he was probably about 55 to 56. It was a long time ago, I can't remember, and we were waiting for a train to pass, so there was then this black guy that looked rather homeless, and he knocked on the glass of our truck and he said something along the lines of, "Can I give you something for your grandson?" and pulls out this model freight train. My dad insisted on giving him $20, but the guy refused, saying, "I'm just trying to make people happy." Dang, I'm dumb, I thought he meant I'll give you something in exchange for your grandson, lol. My son was a week old and had to go to the doctor. I had severe early onset postpartum depression and I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since his birth. I locked my keys, phone, and son in the car. This incredibly wonderful older couple calmed me down, called CAA, parked beside my car, and sat with me until the tow truck came and unlocked the car. The tow driver refused payment. I will never forget those three people. I was walking on the street and a person came to me and said if I had any money. I gave him some. He looked at the money, told me it was sinful, and returned it to me. It was really weird. The money was my hard-earned money. Was on a solo trip to Amsterdam last year, partying it up as one does. Was at a bar having a few drinks, and a gorgeous British woman a seat or two over from me, mid-20s, grabs my arm. I'm a very gay looking man, by the way, and starts going on about how good it is to see me. I got the hint and noticed an older guy bothering her and her friend, played along with them as their long lost BFF until he left. We ended up spending the rest of the night bar crawling and getting trashed together, having the best time. I'll never forget you, B. A little old Jamaican man came in to work and gave me a rosary. He doesn't know me, but he told me he thought I could do with his prayers. I'm agnostic, but I put that rosary on my name badge, and when times are hard and customers are abusive I play with it. It doesn't remind me that God is watching over me, but it does remind me that there is some good left in humanity. The woman who pulled over in the pouring rain and talked me down off the railing of a bridge over a Florida highway when I was 18. She looked like she had just left a business meeting, but she stayed with me for probably an hour. No umbrella, no raincoat, car still running, listening to me, offering words of encouragement. She truly believed that God had a plan for my life, and it wasn't supposed to end that night. She finally convinced me that suicide was a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I'm 51 now. I still haven't figured out what God's plan is for me, but I'm starting to believe she was right. I was in the laundry with my dog and an old man with his dog approached. Our pets met, and the man said, "When Jesus said love your neighbor as you love yourself." Only the dogs understood it. After that we had a small chat, then he left, and I have never seen him again. I will never forget that man. One day I was trying to park at the store and a lady was crossing in front of me in the lot. I was waiting patiently, and she shot me a dirty look and yelled something like, "What's your problem, asshole?" I proceeded to return the profanities with some FUs and other goodies. I went into the store steaming and proceeded to do my shopping. When I came out I had all but forgotten about the lady, but as I drove away, there she was. Something came over me, and I pulled up to her and said something like, "I'm sorry for yelling and cursing at you. I don't even know you. Who knows, we could have a lot in common, or even be friends." Her face transformed in front of me. It went from twisted up angry to soft and friendly. She apologized immediately, and in the most genuine way, told me to have a good day. This is the day I really learned positivity, and love is really powerful and the type of energy I want in my life. I know I sound like a little softy, but that was a big experience for me, and I'm grateful for her. If you want more content like this, hit the like button, and feel free to subscribe. It'd mean a lot.